Hi, Happy New Year's everyone. Welcome to show number 42 of the Cafecito Travel Talks, a podcast where people share travel stories and adventures. My name is Tony Lloyd and I'm your host. For today's show, which is our first show for 2021, we're actually going to catch up with George from show number 33 and show number 37. And he'll tell us about how it's going for him here in Ecuador. But before we start, I would just like to wish everyone a Happy New Year's. Hopefully it's all starting off good, and this year we hope to have the opportunity to start traveling again. I'd like to remind you that if you'd like to donate, to please take a look at our podcast notes to see how you could do so. We've got the written stories on our Facebook page, and if you're someone who likes to write or have an idea for a future show, please send us an email to elcafecitotraveltalks@gmail.com. Any comments, questions that you might have, or ways in which I can improve on the show, please send me an email to elcafecitotraveltalks@gmail.com. So for now, please get yourself a cup of tea or a coffee and enjoy today's show.
So this is George Griffiths for the third time. Hey Tony, how you doing?
I'm good, George. It's good having you here. We're on the rooftop having some tea, and I'm sure there's a bit of background noise behind us. I hope people don't mind about the background noise.
Just a little bit of rain.
Just a little bit of a rain. Okay. But finally, you're here, and it's been over a month now, right?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay. So people have been asking, where's George?
Where's Waldo?
Where's Waldo? Exactly. So what if... Oh, now we've got the police sirens. We've got everything.
It's a good time. There's a party going on.
Well, this is a part of our real life here.
Yes, sir. This is part of Cuenca. That's right.
Okay, George. So, what's been happening? Tell the people what's been happening with you.
Actually, it's been a blast. You know, I want to thank you, Tony, for having welcomed me here. You know, with open arms. It's a great place, man. Cafecito is a great place. I can't explain how much I appreciate the fact. You know, I mean, you've been here for 20 years and all the advice that you were able to give me, you know, really, really, really paid off, because, you know, when I left Cafecito, when I left Cuenca, one of your suggestions was, George, you need to see the country, and I wanted to see the country, but I was having such a good time in Cuenca, and if it wasn't because of you, I probably would have still been in Cuenca. The fact that you advised me on where to go and, you know, places to stay and all the connections you had, it was just so easy for me, and it was so much fun. So when I left Cuenca, as you know, I went to Las Tunas.
Okay, well, let's gonna hold off on that first,
okay.
Okay. So I think what people want to hear first. Okay, so how was it? Tell us about your first impressions. What are some of the things that you found to be like just different from being in Canada? What were some of your first impressions?
So off the bat, just everything here costs $1. You know,
okay.
And it's kind of funny. People might think that's a joke, but most things here are packaged or presented in a way that it's $1. You know, I mean, even taxi rides, you know, a taxi ride that would be $10 in Canada is like $1 or $1.50 here. You know, if you go to get and the most incredible food, freshest fruit, and because as you said, there's different microclimates here, and so there's all kinds of fruits and vegetables all year round, except they package them in a way where it's $1. It doesn't matter if you're buying cherries, strawberries, avocados, oranges, whatever it is, it's $1. And I just found that so unique. You know, I've never been to a place where you can get anything for $1. And that was the first thing that struck me.
Okay. And how's the weather been?
You know, again, the weather is depending on where you are. So the altitude when I first came here affected me more than I thought it would have. Having looked into it a little bit, I realized that there's no rhyme or reason to, you know, your height, your weight, or your athletic ability. It affects people, you know, differently no matter what. And it was a little bit tough for me to get used to. And what I noticed is when I left and I went to the coast, when I came back, it was easier. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like my body acclimatized.
Has adjusted.
Yeah, has adjusted. So I guess I needed that adjustment time. But yes.
So all the steps that we have here in the hostel doesn't help on your altitude.
This is a vertical hostel. This is not a horizontal. This is vertical. So it was quite challenging for the first week or two that I was here. But now it's not that bad.
Okay. But when you get to the rooftop,
it's worth it.
Tell them what you see from the rooftop.
The best view in Cuenca, and it actually is a spectacular view. And you have on Sundays you have something called a Sunset Sunday, or Sunset Sundays, and
Sundays.
And it is the best place, for a view, and the sunsets are incredible. It's quite breathtaking, man. So you got a great place here.
Okay. It's been 6 weeks now.
Yes.
Are you still thinking this was the move for you?
Yes.
Or are you ready to pack your bags and go home?
No, I actually just rented a place. As you know, I signed a lease for a year, and in Cuenca.
Explain to us a little bit about what you have been doing in the last 6 weeks.
Well, what any red-blooded Canadian single man would be doing, drinking cold beer, is what I've been doing for the last 6 weeks. I've been burning the candle at both ends, my friend. I've been having a good time as much as possible, and the cost of living here is low, and everything associated to life here, is very affordable. So I've been having a good time. I've been enjoying the weather and the beautiful people and all the local beers and the good food and whatnot. So I've been really giving her.
Okay, so you were here in Cuenca for a few days, for a few weeks.
Yes.
And then where did you go after Cuenca?
So my first stop was temporarily was Puerto Lopez because it's the bus terminal. So from there I went to, which is a simple 10-minute drive. I went to Las Tunas, was my base. It's super quiet, and it's what I really enjoyed about it. It was really, really quiet. And if you wanted to do a little bit of the partying, right next to it, was Ayampe. And then if you really wanted to get a little crazy, about 25-minute car drive was Montanita, where the second most popular, club, in South America is called Lost Beach. And I was there intermediately where, everything wasn't closed, but everything wasn't open. So I still got a feel of what Montanita could be like. And at the same time, it wasn't too hectic where I couldn't take it and had to leave, because people were telling me, when there's no COVID or when it's flat out, rocking and rolling, you can't sleep. It's a town where it's 24/7. It's a party. So I think in a way I got lucky, where I can see a little bit of how crazy it could get, but it was still calm enough where you can sit down and enjoy. There was room at tables at restaurants and whatnot. So on that note, I got lucky. But then I was there for Christmas, and during Christmas and the holidays, everything shut down. The police rode on the beaches. I think it was 10 o'clock was curfew. There was roadblocks. And it was a little bit disappointing. But
Yeah, the president gave us a warning that everyone had to shut down.
Oh yeah, and
no more than 10 people in any event.
Oh yeah, and the beaches were shut down. And I got lucky because I was at Las Tunas, which is super quiet. So we still got to walk on the beach and take advantage of the beach. But if you were in Montanita or a more popular place, you literally had special forces. I don't know what they were, but these guys were serious. They were on the beach and patrolling with four-wheelers and so. But I guess I got to see both sides of the coin. When the lockdown and a little bit of the party. So I had a good time.
And people are probably wondering, what was it like to move about the country during this time? Apart from Christmas and New Year's, where there were very special restrictions, but right now, what would you say to people about if they want to move about? Is it something you'd recommend?
That's a really good question.
Down?
And yeah, I would. I didn't realize how easy it was, to be quite honest. I didn't realize how easy it was. You get these really nice buses where, for us, it's like the Greyhound bus, equivalent to a Greyhound in Canada, which is high-end, comfortable seats and air conditioning, and $8.50 will take you for 5 hours. And it's incredible. And it's really good service. And one thing that's really unique that I've never seen anywhere else, while you're on the bus, periodically there'll be stops or they'll slow down and there'll be people running next to the bus and they'll jump onto the bus and they have products for sale, whether it's chocolate, whether it's bracelets, it could be coconut water, it could be, you name it. And it's just a really unique experience. It's something that, I've taken the bus several times and I still don't get used to it. Sometimes, and each person has got their own speech, their own pitch. And they'll get on the bus, and some people will use Jesus, and some people will use pictures of their family on their phone, showing, look, I really have a family, and I'm trying to sell chocolate, whatever they got to do to make some money. But it's a unique experience, and traveling is super easy, even during the COVID times, not during the holidays, but still COVID here, and people are wearing masks, and the rules are in effect. The buses were never full, but always available. It's incredible. Every 45 minutes or an hour, there's a bus leaving from a one main city to another. So it was quite easy.
So you will definitely say you're enjoying your transition here.
Yes, I am definitely enjoying. Look, I would highly recommend Ecuador to anybody, and especially Cafecito. Seriously, Tony. I'm not stroking your ego, man, but you've been here for 20 years. And any place I've been, whether it was Las Tunas, Puerto Lopez, Montanita, Ayampe, any place I've been, you've had someone there for me. So, even Guayaquil. So, if I call you and say, oh, I have someone for you in Guayaquil, George. You can call them and, and they'll help you out whatever you need. And every single person you've introduced me to was polite, trustworthy. Even Manta. When I thought about going to Manta, you had 2 people in Manta for me. So if anybody's thinking of coming to Ecuador, I would strongly suggest to come to El Cafecito and make this your base for a while and go from there. So.
Okay. Was there a moment, George, where you were like, oh my gosh, I should be home in Canada? Has there been a moment?
You know what? I gotta admit, no. Not a real look at yourself in the mirror moment where, what are you doing? No. I've always felt that no matter, how many days I hadn't slept or no matter how much fun I was having, that this was the place for me. I've never felt like, I gotta go home. Never.
Even with sirens going on behind us as we're trying to talk.
Even with the police, chasing me right now, I still, that's right.
Okay, I'm sorry about the sirens, folks, that are going off behind us. Hopefully it'll stop in a second. Okay, so the sirens have stopped. You were just saying
yeah, they didn't catch me.
So the police haven't gotten you. So
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so what have been some of the other unusual things apart from the everything costing $1 and the sirens going off while we're trying to talk?
Some of the other unusual things, considering the fact that I've traveled, to other, I guess, similar countries, I haven't seen anything that really kind of culture shocked me or, that I found extremely unusual. I know if I had to pick one, so everything's $1. Well, one thing that is kind of unusual, and we actually spoke about that today, Tony, is there seems to be no center ground, no middle ground. So you can find, restaurants here, with $200 bottles of wine, and you can find great food or almost as good, as these high-end restaurants for like $5 a plate. But there seems to be no middle ground. There seems to be no middle ground, and that's true. And that's kind of one of the things that I kind of guess I find unique or strange.
So things are either really cheap or really expensive.
And and the funny thing is when you say cheap, so cost-wise, yes, really inexpensive, but the quality of the food is great. I mean, and I think part of that reason is because the ingredients are so fresh. Because they have, such a different selection of fresh ingredients, and even the chicken, as an example. I mean, everywhere you walk, they're selling chickens for $5. Like, I've never seen and actually, that's unusual. That's unusual. I've never been to a place where I've never seen so many people selling so many chickens in my life. I don't know where these chickens go. Like, I mean, there's so many chickens out there. They have to be throwing these chickens away, Tony. Like, there's nobody who's buying all these chickens. And you know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not even joking.
I know what you're talking about.
I'm not even kidding, man. Like, in Cuenca, every single street corner, lining up the street, there's vegetables and fruits. And I don't find it strange to see many people selling avocados or, many people selling cherries or whatever it is. But, I mean, I've never seen so many chickens in my life, man, And, I get slightly uncomfortable because I'm thinking to myself, it's hot out there. Like, how is it safe? Like, who gets the bottom chicken? Like, when you sell that 40-second chicken on the bottom, I mean, how safe is that, right? But, I mean, that's something that I find really unique. I've never seen so many chickens.
Well, one of the interesting things about Cuenca is that there are 52 churches here in Cuenca. And the people of Cuenca, or the people here in Cuenca, believe that God will always protect you. So that's why God is protecting us from salmonella and making sure that we don't get food poisoning.
Hey, whatever works, man. Like, if it works, that's all good. Because I tell you something, on that note, being from Canada, you go to a grocery store and any meat, is being refrigerated. Even the eggs, you go to buy eggs. I mean, and they're cold, like they're being refrigerated.
We don't refrigerate eggs here.
No, and I mean a lot of eggs because imagine there's a lot of chickens, so there's a lot of eggs, and they sell eggs. There's no 12-pack eggs. It's 24 stacked high, and it's insane. And I remember the first time I bought the eggs, I didn't even register. It didn't register to me. When I came up, I wanted to put them in your fridge, and you were like, you don't need to put the eggs in the fridge here. And I was like, what do you mean? And then it kind of hit me. I bought the eggs out in the street. They weren't in the fridge, and you told me, you said, God is protecting you here. Don't worry, there's no salmonella. And you know what? I rolled the dice because, I believe in Jesus. And I rolled the dice and it worked. Like, I didn't get sick. I went through the whole 24-pack of eggs in like a week and didn't refrigerate one of them. So I don't know. There's something going on here. It's the altitude. I don't know what it is.
Okay. Okay. Well, the shop that sells the eggs doesn't have refrigeration either.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting point. I guess I've been living in Ecuador too long to not notice that there's a difference.
And but if you think back to when you were in Canada, right, everything is refrigerated. Meat, all meat is refrigerated. And here, you walk down the street, and the butcher shops, right, quote unquote butcher shops, they have those, I guess the glass, counters where the meat is sitting in there, and there's no refrigeration, like zero. And you'll go there every day, and there's meat in there every day. And what I've noticed here, though, is even if you go to the high-end restaurants, the meat is salty. And I attribute that to part of it being that they use salt to preserve it, because I wouldn't understand why you go to a high-end restaurant and the meat would be extra salty, but I guess I'm just attributing it to if you're buying meat here, the only way they preserve it is by using that salt, right? A lot of salt. So, or Jesus, it's salt or Jesus. It's one of the two, man. But
combination of the both.
Oh yeah, maybe it's Jesus' salt. I don't know, but it works.
Okay, so $5 chicken, the $1 for all the different products.
Yeah.
What was it? Was there a moment? I know that everything's not always going to be perfect, but did you have one of those moments you're just like?
I did, man. And I did. And I tell you one thing, being a Canadian, I like to, we have a reputation of being polite, and we have a reputation of being, kind of a generally honest kind of population. And it's not the truth for everybody. I mean, but as a whole, we have that reputation in the world. And, I'd like to consider myself a reasonably honest person. And, I've worked and I've tried to make money in my life. And even though, whatever I was doing, I tried to stay reasonably honest. I'm not saying I haven't, bent the truth or anything, but, when you're a salesman, sometimes, you got to pitch or whatever it is. But I always try to stay honest. But it's a little bit different here, there's been a point where I told you that I went to buy some Oreo cookies, and I don't speak Spanish very well, but I can understand. And the lady had asked, or the daughter was working behind the cash register, and she asked, I think her mother, she said, how much are the cookies? And I was pretty sure I heard her mother say like $1.50 or something like that. And then I had bought a whole bunch of other things, and when I saw her punching in the register, I saw her punch in $3, and I asked her, I said, are the cookies $3? And she shook her head no. And her father was standing, right next to her, and I kind of double checked with the father. I said, are the cookies $3? And he looked at me and he said, oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you want to pay $3. And I was like, I was a little bit taken aback, that won't happen in Canada. Like, you won't go to a store, like usually, the prices are on whatever you're buying, and it's, they barcode it, and it goes through, and whatever the price is, but over here, I found
so there's no gringo tax.
There's no gringo tax, and over here, I found that, but I understand, man, it's a little bit harder for them here, and I get it, they're trying to make some dollars, and they look at us, and they see an opportunity, whatever, but it hurts my feelings, man, like, it kind of took me aback a little bit, because I feel like I'm being robbed, I feel like, that's the only thing where sometimes I would get a little bit, sad or disappointed, and then I got to pay attention now, when you're going to a store now, you just got to be careful, you got to be vigilant, because it might only be $1, or $2, but still, $1 here, $1 there, $2 here. That's the only part where I was a little bit disappointed. But then, when you think about it, this is pretty much a third world country, and sometimes it's hard for them to get water. So if they can get an extra $1 from a gringo, they're going to roll the dice. But being a Canadian, where we don't do that, that's the only slightly disappointing part. So I would only say if anybody comes here and visits Ecuador or any similar country, just keep in mind that if they can make an extra $1 off of you, they will. So just be extra careful, when you're out there, so you don't get taken advantage of. Like I bought a Gatorade, a bag of chips, and a bottle of water at one store. It cost me $3.50, and I bought the same thing at another store, and it cost me $1.50. So,
It happens. It happens. What have your friends and family back home have to say about you? You just told me you're going to get an apartment, you're going to stay for a year. What are they saying about that?
Well, right away, their first question is, well, what about your visa? What are you going to do? How are you going to do that? And I already looked into that, so I know that you can stay up to 6 months. So I got a visa for 3 months already, and then I have to extend it for another 3 months. And if I choose to stay, I have to show guaranteed income. So I kind of have that plan, so I can stay here successfully without having any issues. But the rebel in me says, you know what? If I got 6 months legal, it's not like you're going to hunt me down and throw me out of the country. I just need to behave and not get arrested again, and and it'll be fine. But it's a strange thing, Tony. Man, I remember when I was sitting in Canada thinking, I'm going to Ecuador and this and that, And now I'm here and I'm talking to my friends, who are back in Canada, and they're in the grind. They got their 9 to 5, and they're living the script, and I'm kind of living a dream. I got to be honest, man. The cost of living here, and it's a beautiful country, it's paradise, and it's like I'm living a dream. Sometimes I literally got to pinch myself, and like I said, I just got this really nice place where in Canada I'd be paying 3 times the price I'm paying here. My friends are happy, but at the same time they're so caught up in that wheel, that hamster wheel of life, where okay, George, you're okay, great, whatever it is, and it's hard for them to believe that I'm going to be gone for a year, maybe forever. I love it here, man, and if it works out, and I started an online business, and I'm hoping to start generating some money from my computer, and if that happens, well, you're going to be stuck with me, man. So
okay, well, maybe you should explain to them a little bit about, like, for example, as you said, you just found a place. Give them a little bit of a description of the place, what the facilities are like, and so people have an idea of what the difference in prices are.
First of all, I'm in an area called Gringoland. So literally you can get into a taxi and say, can you take me to Gringoland? And they know where that is. So it's the highest concentration of Americans, or expats, if you will, in this area. So you go there. So the building is great. It's 6 stories. It's brand new. There's a lap pool, a jacuzzi, Turkish showers, a gym. There's 24-hour security. As soon as I sign the lease, I guess I pop up on the screen now. So when I walk in, and I have a fob. So when you swipe your fob, the security guard sees what apartment you're from, and I guess my name's there, and he's like, hello, Senior George. And it's just, you're treated like royalty. It's just great. And then it's a 1-bedroom, but there's a huge balcony, incredible mountain views. A bathroom and a half. Like super fancy shower, leather couches, like fully furnished, internet, water, heating, you name it, for $650 a month. And I tell you, you might be thinking, wow, that's amazing. It's actually a little bit expensive, here, because if you go to another area, if you're willing to go out of Gringoland, you can get something very similar for $450, maybe $500, maybe not as nice of a building, but still, a great place. And I know people who are from Ecuador who have, a 2-bedroom, quite larger, same thing, big balcony for $220 a month. But, you're in an area where, when you're an American or Canadian, they look at you like, you kind of don't belong there. It's not an area where they expect you to be. I'm not saying it's dangerous. I'm just saying there's not too many Americans or Canadians there.
Okay.
But like I said, the cost of living here is just incredible.
And we all know that in any major city around the world, Toronto, London, New York,
Montreal,
Paris, Montreal, that apartment will cost 3 times
easy.
Easily
Easy. You're paying $1,800 easy to live in that building.
Okay. Somebody's listening to us right now and they're thinking of coming down. What sort of words of advice do you have for them?
I would say find yourself someone. I don't know if it's someone or an organization or something, but like I said, Tony, at the beginning of this interview, I was kind of a little bit blessed because I come to a country where this is a third world country, and you're no matter where you drive, you're reminded that there's poverty and that there's it's kind of sketchy sometimes, and if you're not comfortable with that, and if you're not used to that kind of environment, I would strongly suggest having someone that you can lean on, someone that you can trust, who will be able to guide you, and tell you, listen, you can go there, but don't go in that area, or if you're going over here, take this bus and travel like this. So 1, you can be safe, and 2, you can maximize your time, because again, if it wasn't because of you, even though Ecuador is a small country, there's so many things to see and so many places to go. It becomes, where do I go? What do I do? How do I get there? What's the best way? Where do I stay? What's safe? What's not? And again, because I've had you. It was so easy. It was like, hey, Tony, what? And he was like, no, you go there. You call this person. Don't go there. So, speaking for me personally, it was a lot easier, and it made my experience so much better. So if anybody's planning on coming to Ecuador and they don't have anybody, just call Tony.
Just call Tony.
Yeah, just call Tony. But it's true. Okay. I mean, think about it. Montreal can be very dangerous, but people are hungry here. There's a different level of poverty here. And when they see you walking around and you're glowing in the dark because you just got off the plane and you're glowing white, if you go in the wrong place, it could be dangerous, like anywhere else in the world. So, like I said, if anybody's planning to come to Ecuador, I would strongly suggest it. It's a beautiful country. There's some really nice people, but plan ahead. Plan ahead. Make sure you're organized. I wouldn't suggest just showing up in Guayaquil, and not knowing where you're going to go, and jumping into a cab, random taxi, and saying, hey, take me to wherever you think is best. I wouldn't suggest that, and New York wouldn't be a place to do that either, as an example, right? So, just plan, plan. If you plan properly, you'll have a great time. It's an incredible place. So.
Okay. Well, George, yeah, it's, this whole process of people who have been listening in to the first show before you left Canada while you were on your way here. Now you're finally here. And tomorrow you'll be moving into your new apartment here in Cuenca.
Yes,
and
I will.
becoming one of the Cuenca expats.
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
Okay, so thank you for taking this time to sit down and talk with me. And maybe we'll have you on a fourth time.
Yeah, where's George? Yeah,
where's George? We'll have some updates on
Absolutely.
Where's George.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Thank you for listening in. As always, I hope you enjoyed the show. George's information can be found in our podcast notes, along with information on how you could donate to our show. It could be as little as $1. Don't forget to take a look at the Facebook page to see the written stories, and if you're someone who likes to write or have an idea for a future show, please send us an email to elcafecitotraveltalks@gmail.com. Any comments, questions on ways that I can improve, also send me an email to that address, which is elcafecitotraveltalks@gmail.com. Once again, I would like to take this opportunity to wish everyone a very, very happy New Year's, and hopefully we'll be able to travel again soon, and we'll be able to see each other here in Cuenca, Ecuador, or in our sister location in Quito. But for now, all the best, and please stay safe.